Clara had always been a woman of faith. Raised in the church from a young age, her life in Houston, Texas, was shaped by Christian principles that guided every decision she made. At 25, she married John, an ambitious and successful businessman. They had 3 sons, Michael, now 20, David, 18, and Luke, 16. Although Clara had always dreamed of having a daughter, she felt blessed with 3 healthy and loving boys. "Clara, don't you miss having a daughter?" her friend and confidant, Sarah, asked as they sipped coffee on Clara's porch. "Of course I do, Sarah. I've always dreamed of having a girl to pass on my teachings and share special moments with. But I love my boys more than anything," Clara replied with a bittersweet smile. John, on the other hand, was a worldly man, always busy with his business and with a very different vision of what he wanted for his wife. He loved Clara, but he wanted her to take more care of herself, to be as glamorous and attention-grabbing as the women he saw at parties and business events. "Clara, you should take better care of yourself. I don't understand why you insist on being so simple," John said impatiently during dinner. "John, you know I was raised differently. The church taught me to value inner beauty, not outer appearance," Clara replied, trying to stay calm. The first tensions in their marriage began to surface. John wanted Clara to get breast implants, wear shorter clothes, and visit cosmetic clinics. Clara resisted, steadfast in her religious values. Despite the differences, life continued at what seemed like a normal pace. "I just want you to feel beautiful and confident," John insisted, holding Clara's hand. "I only want the best for you." "I understand, John, but my confidence comes from a different place, not from appearances," Clara said, looking him in the eye, trying to make him understand. Clara's routine was dedicated to her family and church. She spent her days caring for the children, helping with church activities, and keeping the house in order. John, on the other hand, was increasingly absent, absorbed in his business and, as Clara would later discover, other women. But for now, life went on, with Clara trying to keep her faith and values intact while John sought something she couldn't provide. As the years went by, John's pressures on Clara grew. He didn't understand why she insisted on maintaining such a modest appearance when he could give her everything. To John, outer beauty was a form of status, something he wanted his wife to display with pride. "Clara, I don't see why you can't just consider getting implants. You'd look so beautiful," John said, his tone a mix of impatience and frustration as they prepared for a business event. "John, we've talked about this. It's not something I want for myself. My faith teaches me to value who I am inside, not my outward appearance," Clara replied, trying to hide her growing irritation. "But it's not just about you. It's about us, about how we're seen. Don't you want us to be admired?" John insisted, stepping closer. "Admired by whom? I'd rather be admired for my kindness and faith, not for a body that doesn't represent who I am," Clara retorted firmly. Business events were particularly challenging for Clara. While other women paraded in luxurious dresses and high heels, Clara felt out of place in her modest attire. John, beside her, wore a tense smile, clearly uncomfortable with his wife's simplicity. "You could at least try, Clara. For me. For us," he whispered during one of these parties, while Clara maintained a polite smile for John's work colleagues. "I try, John. Every day. But you need to understand that my identity goes beyond appearances. I won't change who I am to meet superficial expectations," Clara said, feeling a deep pain in her heart. Over time, John's insistence began to erode Clara's self-esteem. She started to question if she was being selfish, if she should compromise a little to save her marriage. But every time she considered changing, something inside her resisted, a firm voice that reminded her of her values and who she truly was. "Maybe I should consider making some changes. Maybe it would help us reconnect," Clara confided to Sarah during a walk in the park. "You need to do what you feel is right for you, Clara. Don't let yourself be pressured. If changing is what you want, do it for yourself, not for him," Sarah advised with a concerned look. Despite her friend's support, Clara felt increasingly isolated in her marriage. John continued his attempts to persuade her, and Clara continued to resist. The delicate balance in their relationship was starting to unravel, and Clara knew something needed to change. She just didn't know what or how. John's constant pressure and Clara's resistance created a widening chasm between them. Frustrated and dissatisfied, John began to seek outside the home what he felt was missing in their marriage. His infidelity started subtly, but soon became more frequent and impossible to hide. On a Friday night, Clara was at home preparing dinner when John arrived late, once again. She could smell women's perfume on his clothes, a scent that wasn't hers. "You're late again, John. Another business meeting?" Clara asked, trying to keep her voice neutral as she set the dishes on the table. "Yes, it was a meeting that ran longer than expected," John replied, avoiding Clara's gaze. "With meetings like that, you must be doing a lot of business," Clara commented, trying to mask the growing pain and suspicion inside her. "You know how it is, Clara. Work is work," John said with little conviction, sitting down at the table. Clara tried to maintain the routine, but the lonely nights and strange smells on John's clothes became impossible to ignore. She started to discreetly search, finding receipts from expensive restaurants and jewelry she had never seen. One day, Clara decided to confront him. "John, we need to talk," she said, closing the bedroom door after the boys were asleep. "What's up, Clara?" John asked, feeling cornered. "I know you're cheating on me. I've found the receipts, the gifts, the smells on your clothes. I can't pretend everything is okay anymore," Clara said, her voice trembling. John sighed and sat on the edge of the bed. I didn't want this to happen. But you never listen to me, never consider my needs." "My needs? And what about mine, John? Do you think about what I need?" Clara replied, feeling anger and sadness mixing in her chest. "I wanted a wife who took care of herself, who cared about her appearance." "I tried, Clara." "But you didn't want to change," John said, trying to justify himself. "I am who I am, John, and you knew that when we got married." "I can't change my essence to please you," Clara said, tears in her eyes. Trust was broken, and Clara felt betrayed not just by John's actions, but by how he justified his infidelities. From that moment on, something shifted within her. The simple, devoted woman began to question everything she believed, starting to wonder if, to save her family, she might need to give up a part of herself. However, Clara knew that the decision wouldn't be easy. She was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, trying to balance her values with the need to save her marriage. What she didn't know was that this was just the beginning of many battles to come, and the greatest transformation was yet to happen. After the painful discovery of John's betrayal, Clara spent days in deep reflection. She wondered if giving in to her husband's demands would truly be the solution to save their marriage. The idea of changing her appearance seemed to contradict everything she believed, but the pain of betrayal and the desire to keep her family together left her torn. One night, as Clara sat in the bedroom, John came in and sat beside her. "Clara, I know you're hurt. I'm hurt too. I didn't want things to get to this point," John said with a tone of regret. "You knew this would hurt me, John. And yet, you chose to betray our trust," Clara replied, her eyes fixed on the floor. "I want us to fix this. Maybe if you consider surgery, we could start fresh." "I really believe it would help us," John suggested hesitantly. Clara looked at him, her eyes filled with pain and confusion. She knew the decision was difficult, but the fear of losing her family made her consider the proposal. "I don't know, John, but if this really means so much to you, I'll think about it," Clara said with a deep sigh. Weeks later, Clara made the difficult decision to undergo the surgery. She scheduled a consultation with a plastic surgeon, determined to try to save her marriage and restore peace in her family. After the surgery, Clara went through a recovery period. When she finally looked at herself in the mirror, she saw a version of herself she didn't completely recognize. Her new breasts, longer hair, and extra attention to her appearance were a radical departure from her former self. "You look beautiful, Clara. I knew you could do it," John said, admiring her as she got ready for the first party after the surgery. "I did this for us, John. I hope it really makes a difference," Clara replied with a timid smile, but still with doubts in her heart. At the party, Clara received compliments and admiring looks. John seemed proud, showing off his transformed wife to his colleagues. However, Clara couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that the new appearance didn't fill. "You look so different, Clara. It seems like you've finally decided to take care of yourself, one of John's colleagues commented. Thank you. I just hope these changes are for the better, Clara replied, trying to keep a smile. Despite the external transformation, Clara felt that something was still missing. The decision to change her appearance brought temporary relief to her marriage, but the real healing for the deep wounds was still far off. Clara knew that the journey of self-discovery and acceptance was just beginning, and facing the coming challenges would be crucial to finding true peace within herself. Although Clara had changed her appearance to please John, tensions within the household continued to rise. The physical changes didn't resolve the underlying issues in their marriage, and the pressure began to affect the entire family, especially their children. Michael, the oldest, and David, the middle child, started showing behaviors that Clara, with her conservative values, found troubling. Michael had an interest in fashion and displayed a more effeminate demeanor, while David showed interest in activities Clara considered unmasculine. Michael, why are you wearing that shirt? It looks like something a girl would wear, Clara said one morning, seeing her son in a pink blouse. Mom, it's just a color. Besides, I like it. It makes me feel good, Michael replied firmly. I don't want to see you wearing that again. It's not appropriate, Clara retorted sternly. As discussions about the children's sexuality began to become more frequent and intense, Clara, trapped in her own internal conflicts, couldn't accept the possibility that her children might be gay. One night, after a tense dinner, David tried to talk to his mother. Mom, I need to tell you something, David began hesitantly. What is it, David? I'm tired. Can it be quick? Clara responded, exhausted. I'm gay, and I don't want to hide it anymore, David said, his voice trembling. Clara's reaction was explosive. What? No, you're not. This is just a phase. You'll get over it. Clara shouted, tears in her eyes. No, Mom. It's not a phase. It's who I am, David insisted, starting to cry. Clara's anger pushed her to a breaking point. She hit David, an act she immediately regretted but couldn't undo. David ran to his room, and Michael entered the room, drawn by the shouting. What's going on here? Michael asked, worried. Your brother thinks he's gay. I can't accept it, Clara exclaimed, her voice breaking. Mom, you can't force us to be who we're not. I'm gay too, Michael revealed, trying to stay calm. The revelation of both sons was too much for Clara. She collapsed on the couch, sobbing in despair. John, seeing the scene, tried to intervene. Clara, we need to talk about this. We can't handle our kids this way, John said, trying to calm the situation. I just want what's best for them, John. And this isn't it. Clara shouted, feeling helpless. The family was on the brink of breaking apart. Clara, in her attempt to control the situation and impose her values, was pushing away those she loved. She knew she needed help but didn't know where to turn. Lonely nights became more frequent, and Clara began to question whether the changes she made to her appearance were really worth it. Amid the chaos, Clara began to realize that perhaps the answers to her problems weren't in external changes, but in an internal transformation. The journey to accept herself and her children was just beginning, and Clara knew she would need all the strength of her faith and the support of her family to find a path to reconciliation. The constant tension and conflicts at home started affecting Clara deeply. Feeling lost and unsure how to deal with her children's revelations, she turned to Anna, a close friend she had hired to help with household tasks. Noticing Clara's emotional fragility, Anna decided to introduce her to something new. One day, while having tea in the kitchen, Anna began talking about a spiritual center she attended. Clara, I know you're going through a tough time. Maybe you should come with me to the spiritual center. It might help you find some peace, Anna suggested gently. Spiritual center? I don't know, Anna. I was raised in the church, always followed Christian teachings. I'm not sure if it would be right for me, Clara replied, hesitant. I understand, Clara, but sometimes, when we're lost, we need to explore new paths to find answers. Just think about it, Anna said with a kind smile. After several weeks of persistence and seeing her life continue to spiral downward, Clara decided to accompany Anna to the spiritual center. Her curiosity and desire to find some form of relief motivated her to try something new. At the spiritual center, Clara was welcomed with warmth and understanding. The spiritual sessions were completely different from anything she had known, but there was a sense of peace that began to draw her in. "Welcome, Clara. I hope you find the peace you're seeking here," said the center's leader, a serene woman named Marissa. Clara began attending the spiritual center regularly, torn between her Christian beliefs and the new spiritual experiences she was having. The spiritual sessions brought a new perspective to her life, but also deepened her internal conflicts. One day, while Clara was at the center, John decided to confront her. "Clara, you're going to this spiritual center? What happened to our faith? To the values we've always followed?" John asked, a mix of disbelief and concern in his voice. "John, I'm trying to find answers. I'm lost and desperate. I feel like nothing makes sense anymore," Clara replied, tears in her eyes. "And you think seeking answers outside our faith is the solution?" "Clara, this isn't you," John retorted, shaken. "I don't know who I am anymore, John. I'm trying to find a path, any path that will lead me back to peace," Clara confessed. As Clara ventured down this new spiritual path, her children were also facing their own struggles. Michael and David were more open about their sexualities, but Clara's rejection hurt them deeply. "Michael, do you think Mom will ever accept us for who we are?" David asked, worried. "I don't know, David, but we need to keep being ourselves, no matter what she thinks. We'll support her and try to help her understand," Michael responded, determined. Clara was caught between two realities: the Christian faith that had always guided her and the new spiritual experiences that provided temporary relief. She knew she needed to find a balance to heal herself and her family. The nights at the spiritual center became a refuge, but true reconciliation with her family and herself was still far off. Clara was on a journey of self-discovery, trying to find her true self amidst the chaos and pain. Clara continued her search for peace and understanding, divided between her old faith and the new experiences at the spiritual center. Meanwhile, Michael and David were increasingly determined to live their truths, even if it meant facing their mother's disapproval. One Sunday during lunch, Clara tried once again to have an honest conversation with her children. "Michael, David, I know we've had a lot of disagreements lately. I just want what's best for you," Clara began, with a conciliatory tone. "Mom, what's best for us is to be accepted for who we are. You need to understand that," Michael responded firmly. "I'm trying, Michael. It's hard for me," Clara said, almost pleading for understanding. David, who was usually more reserved, decided to speak up. "Mom, we love you, but we can't change who we are to make you happy. You need to accept that we're gay. That's not going to change." David's words struck Clara deeply. She knew that, deep down, her children were right, but accepting that truth was a huge challenge for her. After lunch, Clara retreated to her room, where she found comfort in her new spiritual practices. She felt an increasing need to connect with something greater than herself, something that could guide her through this turbulent time. That same night, while Clara was at the spiritual center, Marissa, the center's leader, approached her. "Clara, I sense that you're carrying a heavy burden. Perhaps it's time for you to open up completely and embrace the truths that are before you," Marissa suggested, with a compassionate look. "I don't know if I can, Marissa. My values, my faith, everything feels so confusing right now," Clara confessed, tears in her eyes. "Sometimes, accepting the truth is the first step toward true freedom. Trust your heart, Clara. It knows the way," Marissa advised. Inspired by Marissa's words, Clara decided it was time to confront her own truths. She knew she needed to accept her children for who they were, but she also needed to find her own path to internal reconciliation. The next day, Clara gathered her family in the living room. John, Michael, and David looked at her with a mix of expectation and apprehension. "I need to say something to you all. I've been lost, trying to find my way between my beliefs and the love I have for you. I know I've failed to accept who you are," Clara began, her voice trembling. "Mom, you don't need to apologize. We just want you to accept us," Michael said, holding David's hand. "I'm trying, and I will keep trying, because I love you more than anything in this world," Clara continued, tears in her eyes. "And John, I know we have our differences, but I'm determined to find a way for us too. John, with tears in his eyes, approached Clara and hugged her. We'll get through this together, Clara. We're a family, and families stick together, no matter the difficulties. Clara knew the journey was just beginning, but she felt a new hope blossoming within her. She was determined to accept the truth of her children and seek her own truth, no matter how difficult the path. True reconciliation was still distant, but the first step had been taken, and Clara was ready to face the challenges ahead with courage and love. Despite Clara's promises to try to accept her children, the journey was far from easy. Acceptance was a process, and Clara still struggled with her internal prejudices. The situation worsened when, during a heated argument, Clara reacted aggressively to an expression of affection between Michael and his boyfriend, Jake. "I can't believe you brought him into our house," Clara shouted, seeing Michael and Jake holding hands in the living room. "Mom, Jake is my boyfriend, and I'm not going to hide him just to please you," Michael replied, holding Jake's hand firmly. "This is an affront. I've told you I don't accept this," Clara exclaimed before turning and storming out of the room, slamming the door behind her. John, who had been watching silently, followed Clara. He found her in the kitchen, crying. "Clara, we need to talk." "We can't keep going on like this," John said, with a calm tone. "I'm trying, John, but it's so hard." "This goes against everything I believe," Clara replied, wiping her tears. "I know, but our children need us. They need our love and acceptance," John said, trying to comfort his wife. Clara's rejection created an even bigger rift in the family. Michael and David felt increasingly estranged from their mother, and the tension at home became nearly unbearable. Feeling more lost than ever, Clara decided to distance herself from everything. She moved in with a friend for a few weeks, seeking clarity and trying to figure out how to handle her emotions. During this time, she reflected on her life and the choices she had made. One day, while she was away, Clara met with Marissa from the spiritual center again. They met at a quiet cafe, where Clara opened up about her struggles. "Marissa, I feel like I'm failing as a mother and wife. I don't know how to handle all of this," Clara confessed, her eyes filled with tears. "Clara, acceptance starts with yourself. You need to forgive and accept yourself before you can accept others. Life is a journey of self-discovery, and sometimes we need to lose ourselves to find ourselves," Marissa advised, with a gentle smile. Marissa's words resonated deeply with Clara. She knew she needed to find peace within herself before she could reconcile with her family. Determined to change, Clara began attending therapy sessions and support groups, seeking to understand herself and her prejudices better. After a few weeks, Clara returned home, ready to start anew. She called the whole family for a meeting in the living room. "I know I've made many mistakes and hurt you deeply. I'm doing my best to change and understand. I want you to know that I'm truly trying," Clara said, sincerely. "Mom, we just want you to love and accept us for who we are," David said, holding Michael's hand. "I know, and I'm working on it. I love you more than anything, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to keep our family together," Clara affirmed, her eyes shining with determination. The family knew that the journey toward acceptance and healing would be long, but for the first time, there was a glimmer of hope. Clara was willing to face her own demons and find a new path, one of love and acceptance, that could finally bring the peace they were all seeking. Clara's journey to find peace and acceptance within herself brought significant changes. She became more open to dialogue and started actively participating in family therapy sessions. However, this openness also revealed another facet of Clara, something she hadn't expected to discover: her own repressed desires. During one of the therapy sessions, Clara began to talk about her life before marriage. "I was always the obedient daughter, the devoted wife. But I never had the chance to explore who I really am," Clara confessed, tears in her eyes. "Clara, it's important for you to allow yourself to feel and explore your own emotions and desires. This is part of your journey of self-discovery," the therapist said encouragingly. Clara began to open up more about her own wants. During a casual meeting with an old school friend, Lisa, Clara started exploring new feelings. The two began spending time together, and Clara felt something she had never experienced before: an attraction to another woman. Lisa, I never thought I'd feel this way. This is all so new to me, Clara admitted during a walk in the park. Clara, there's nothing wrong with exploring your feelings. What's important is being honest with yourself, Lisa replied with an understanding smile. Clara started spending more time with Lisa, and a deep friendship blossomed into something more. For the first time, Clara allowed herself to be vulnerable and follow her own desires. However, this new double life began to take its toll. John, noticing Clara's distance, confronted her. Clara, what's going on? You're different, distant. Is there something I need to know? John asked, his concern evident. John, I'm trying to figure out who I am. I feel like I've been trapped in a role for so long that I've forgotten myself, Clara replied, struggling to find the right words. Clara, I've always supported you, but you need to be honest with me. What's really happening? John insisted. I'm exploring my own feelings, and that includes my feelings for another woman, Clara confessed, her voice trembling. The revelation shook John deeply. He felt betrayed and confused, but tried to understand the situation. So, is this it? Are you betraying me? John asked, pain in his eyes. This isn't about betrayal, John. It's about finding myself. I've never had this opportunity before, Clara explained, trying to calm him. John stepped back, needing time to process everything. Clara knew this revelation could destroy what remained of their marriage, but she also knew she couldn't continue living a lie. Meanwhile, Michael and David observed the changes in their mother and the family dynamic. They noticed that Clara was more open, but also more distant. Mom, what's going on? You seem different, Michael asked, concerned. I'm trying to find my way, Michael. It's hard for all of us, but I need to be honest with myself, Clara replied with a sad smile. Clara's double life brought new challenges, but also a newfound sense of freedom. She knew the path ahead would be difficult, but she was determined to be true to herself and her family. The journey of acceptance and self-discovery continued, and Clara was ready to face any obstacle to finally find inner peace. Clara's life, now marked by new discoveries and complexities, was in a state of turmoil. Her relationship with John was deteriorating, and her life with Lisa was becoming more public. The family dynamic was under pressure, and the impact was reflected in every aspect of Clara's life. One night, after a particularly heated argument with John, Clara sought support from Lisa. They met at a local cafe, a place where Clara felt safe to openly discuss her feelings. Lisa, I feel like I'm losing everything. My family, my marriage. I'm so confused, Clara said, her tone desperate. Clara, you're going through a profound transformation. It's natural to feel confused. But you need to remember that you're also reconnecting with who you truly are, Lisa replied with a comforting look. As Clara sought solace in Lisa, the situation at home became increasingly tense. John was growing more distant and decided to confront Clara again after hearing rumors about her new relationship. Clara, I've heard things about you and Lisa. What's going on? Is this really what you want? John asked, frustration and pain in his voice. I'm trying to be honest with myself and with you. I never gave myself the chance to explore who I really am, Clara explained, sadness in her voice. So you're telling me that everything we had, everything we built, means nothing to you anymore? John retorted, clearly hurt. John, it's not that. I still care about you. But I need to follow my own path to discover my true happiness, Clara said, tears in her eyes. Feeling helpless, John decided to open up to Michael and David about his concerns and the situation with Clara. They were at home, and John found them in the living room. Michael, David, I need to talk to you about your mother. Things are very complicated, John said, his tone serious. Dad, we know. Mom is changing, and it's hard for all of us, Michael said, his face showing concern. I know, and I'm trying to understand. But there are things you need to know. Clara and Lisa are closer than they appear. And I don't know how to deal with that, John explained. David, listening attentively, looked at John with compassion. Dad, I know this is hard for you, but I think it's important for you to allow yourself to feel and adapt. Mom is trying to find her way, and it's not easy for anyone. I'm trying, but I'm lost. I don't know how to deal with the pain and confusion, John said, sighing. As the family struggled with the changes, Clara decided to open up completely to her children. She invited them for a conversation at home, knowing she needed to explain her situation and choices. Michael, David, I want you to know that it hasn't been easy for me to get to where I am now. I'm trying to be honest with you and with myself, Clara began sincerely. Mom, we understand that you're going through a tough time. We just want you to be happy and true to yourself, Michael said, showing support. I'm trying. I love you both, and I want you to know that despite the changes, I will always be here for you, Clara said, her eyes filled with hope. Clara knew that the wounds and pain wouldn't disappear immediately, but she was determined to face the situation with honesty and courage. The family was going through a crisis, but Clara's willingness to open up and be authentic was a crucial step toward finding a new balance and beginning to heal the wounds that had formed. With the increasing tension between Clara and John and Clara's growing acceptance of her new identity, separation became inevitable. After a period of intense communication and therapy, John and Clara reached a point where it was clear their paths were diverging irreversibly. On a Sunday afternoon, Clara and John sat in the living room, where they had spent much of their time together, now with a heavy silence hanging between them. Clara, we need to talk about what comes next. The situation between us is becoming untenable, John began, his voice weary. I know, John. I don't want this to be hard for you, but we also can't continue like this, Clara replied, with a sad expression. I feel like you're following a completely different path from mine. And while I want you to be happy, I can't keep up with this change, John said, with a melancholic look. I understand. I also feel that we're going in opposite directions. It's hard for me, but I know we need to move forward, Clara said, trying to stay calm. As John and Clara discussed the separation, Michael and David were in their room, listening from a distance. They were worried about the impact this would have on the family and tried to discuss the situation among themselves. I can't believe this is really happening, Michael said, frustration in his voice. I know. Mom and Dad are trying to deal with everything, but it's tough for all of us. I just hope they find some form of peace, David replied, with a concerned look. The next day marked the beginning of the separation process. Clara and John sought legal advice to formalize the separation, and the changes began to take shape. However, Clara still struggled with the idea of dividing her life between her new experiences and her relationship with her children. She decided to meet with Michael and David for an honest conversation about how the separation would affect the family dynamic. Michael, David, I want you to know that despite the separation, you will always be my priority. I'm doing my best to handle all of this, but I need your support, Clara said sincerely. Mom, we understand that you're going through a difficult time. We'll try to maintain our relationship and support you and Dad as best as we can, Michael said, showing maturity. I appreciate that, and I want you to know that, despite everything, I will always be here for you. I want us to continue being a family, even though things are changing, Clara said, with a hopeful look. Meanwhile, John tried to meet with Clara one last time to discuss the future. They met at a nearby park, where they could talk without the distractions of home. Clara, I just want you to know that, despite everything, I hope you find the happiness you're searching for. And I hope we can handle this in a way that's respectful for the sake of our children, John said, his tone softer. I also wish the best for you, John. And I hope we can find a way to move forward in a healthy way for all of us, Clara replied, with a sad smile. The separation was a challenge for everyone involved, but Clara and John were determined to do what was best for their children. Both were searching for new forms of happiness and fulfillment, knowing that the adjustment process would be long and difficult. As each of them followed their own path, the hope of rebuilding their lives and finding a new sense of peace remained on the horizon. With Clara and John's separation finalized, the family entered a new phase of reconstruction. The changes were profound, and each family member had to find their own way to acceptance and peace. Clara and John began to follow their respective paths, but the family's healing was still underway. Clara settled into a new apartment that reflected her desire for a fresh start. The space was simpler but filled with personal touches that made her feel at home. Lisa continued to support her, and their relationship was growing stronger. However, Clara still struggled to balance her new life with maintaining healthy relationships with her children. One afternoon, Clara decided to invite Michael and David over for lunch at her new apartment. She wanted to make sure they knew that despite all the changes, she still deeply cared about them. "Hey guys, come on in, please. I'm so glad you could come," Clara said, greeting them with a warm smile. "Hi, Mom. The place looks great," David said, looking around with curiosity. "Thanks, David. I wanted you to see how I'm adjusting. I'm trying to make my new space a comfortable place," Clara explained as she served the food. As they chatted during lunch, Clara tried to find a balance between her new life and supporting her children. "I want you to know that I'm doing my best to find balance. I know the changes have been hard, and I really appreciate that you've been trying to understand," Clara said, with a sincere look. "Mom, we understand that this is complicated. We just want you to be happy and find your own peace," Michael said, encouragingly. "I'm also trying to find my peace, and I want you to know that no matter what, you will always have a special place in my life," Clara said, with a grateful smile. After lunch, Clara had a conversation with Lisa about the importance of keeping open communication with the children and maintaining a healthy relationship with John, even after the separation. "Lisa, I'm trying to adjust to all these changes, but I still feel like there's so much to do. I want to make sure my kids feel loved and supported," Clara said, with concern. "Clara, you're doing a great job. The most important thing is that you keep being honest with them and with yourself. Open communication is key to rebuilding relationships," Lisa advised, with a compassionate look. Meanwhile, John was also trying to adjust to his post-separation life. He began engaging in new projects and exploring new activities to find a new sense of purpose. One afternoon, John decided to meet with Clara to discuss how they could handle co-parenting and ensure their children received support from both parents. "Clara, I wanted to talk about how we're going to handle co-parenting. I want our kids to feel they have the support of both parents, despite all the changes," John began, constructively. "I agree, John. It's important that our kids feel they're not alone in this transition. We should try to keep open communication and ensure they know we're here for them," Clara replied, with a positive attitude. "Yes, and I also want to be involved in their activities and be present when needed. I think that can help maintain the stability they need," John said. "Great. Let's work together to ensure our kids have the support they need. They are our priority, and we need to do our best for them," Clara affirmed, with determination. Clara and John's lives were in a process of rebuilding, but both were committed to maintaining a healthy relationship and supporting their children in the best way possible. The journey was not easy, but there was new hope that, with patience and effort, the family could find a new balance and a path to renewed happiness. "I appreciate that, and I want you to know that, despite everything, I will always be here for you. I want us to continue being a family, even though things are changing," Clara said, with a hopeful look. Meanwhile, John tried to meet with Clara one last time to discuss the future. They met at a nearby park, where they could talk without the distractions of home. "Clara, I just want you to know that, despite everything, I hope you find the happiness you're searching for. And I hope we can handle this in a way that's respectful for the sake of our children," John said, his tone softer. "I also wish the best for you, John, and I hope we can find a way to move forward in a healthy way for all of us," Clara replied, with a sad smile. The separation was a challenge for everyone involved, but Clara and John were determined to do what was best for their children. Both were searching for new forms of happiness and fulfillment, knowing that the adjustment process would be long and difficult. As each of them followed their own path, the hope of rebuilding their lives and finding a new sense of peace remained on the horizon. With Clara and John's separation finalized, the family entered a new phase of reconstruction. The changes were profound, and each family member had to find their own way to acceptance and peace. Clara and John began to follow their respective paths, but the family's healing was still underway. Clara settled into a new apartment that reflected her desire for a fresh start. The space was simpler but filled with personal touches that made her feel at home. Lisa continued to support her, and their relationship was growing stronger. However, Clara still struggled to balance her new life with maintaining healthy relationships with her children. One afternoon, Clara decided to invite Michael and David over for lunch at her new apartment. She wanted to make sure they knew that despite all the changes, she still deeply cared about them. "Hey guys, come on in, please." "I'm so glad you could come," Clara said, greeting them with a warm smile. "Hi, Mom. The place looks great," David said, looking around with curiosity. "Thanks, David. I wanted you to see how I'm adjusting. I'm trying to make my new space a comfortable place," Clara explained as she served the food. As they chatted during lunch, Clara tried to find a balance between her new life and supporting her children. "I want you to know that I'm doing my best to find balance. I know the changes have been hard, and I really appreciate that you've been trying to understand," Clara said, with a sincere look. "Mom, we understand that this is complicated. We just want you to be happy and find your own peace," Michael said, encouragingly. "I'm also trying to find my peace, and I want you to know that no matter what, you will always have a special place in my life," Clara said, with a grateful smile. After lunch, Clara had a conversation with Lisa about the importance of keeping open communication with the children and maintaining a healthy relationship with John, even after the separation. "Lisa, I'm trying to adjust to all these changes, but I still feel like there's so much to do. I want to make sure my kids feel loved and supported," Clara said, with concern. "Clara, you're doing a great job. The most important thing is that you keep being honest with them and with yourself. Open communication is key to rebuilding relationships," Lisa advised, with a compassionate look. Meanwhile, John was also trying to adjust to his post-separation life. He began engaging in new projects and exploring new activities to find a new sense of purpose. One afternoon, John decided to meet with Clara to discuss how they could handle co-parenting and ensure their children received support from both parents. "Clara, I wanted to talk about how we're going to handle co-parenting. I want our kids to feel they have the support of both parents, despite all the changes," John began, constructively. "I agree, John. It's important that our kids feel they're not alone in this transition. We should try to keep open communication and ensure they know we're here for them," Clara replied, with a positive attitude. "Yes, and I also want to be involved in their activities and be present when needed. I think that can help maintain the stability they need," John said. "Great. Let's work together to ensure our kids have the support they need. They are our priority, and we need to do our best for them," Clara affirmed, with determination. Clara and John's lives were in a process of rebuilding, but both were committed to maintaining a healthy relationship and supporting their children in the best way possible. The journey was not easy, but there was new hope that, with patience and effort, the family could find a new balance and a path to renewed happiness.